There is a primal terror in realizing you are not alone. Imagine waking up in the dead of winter. You live miles from the nearest town. The world is buried in a pristine layer of white. You walk outside, and you see a single set of heavy footprints emerging from the dark tree line. They lead straight to your front door. But there are no footprints leading back out. This was the reality for the Gruber family in the winter of 1922. Their home was a sprawling, isolated farmstead in the Bavarian woods, located about an hour's drive from Munich. It was ominously named Hinterkaifeck. It translates roughly to behind the Kaifeck woods, a place hidden away from the eyes of the world, and a place where one of the most terrifying, unsolved anomalies in European history was about to unfold. The horror at Hinterkaifeck did not begin with violence. It began with a quiet, creeping invasion. 6 months before the tragedy, the family's maid suddenly packed her belongings and fled. She was frantic, refusing to spend another night in the house. She told the patriarch, Andreas Gruber, that she was hearing voices, that the house was infested. Andreas dismissed her as hysterical, but then the strange occurrences began to multiply. Deep scratches appeared on the lock of the tool shed, and a strange newspaper from a distant town, a paper no one in the family subscribed to, was found folded neatly on their property.
To understand the terror of Hinterkaifeck, you must understand its architecture. Unlike modern homes, the farmhouse, the stables, and the barn were not separate buildings. They were a single, continuous structure connected by a long, dark hallway and a sprawling, unfinished attic. It was a labyrinth of wood, hay, and shadows, a place where sound traveled in strange, deceptive ways. And in the days leading up to March 31st, 1922, the sounds became impossible to ignore. Andreas Gruber began hearing a heavy, rhythmic thumping from the ceiling above his bedroom. At first, he blamed the harsh winter wind, or perhaps animals in the hayloft. But the evidence of human occupation began to surface. A set of house keys vanished from Andreas's desk. No windows were broken, no doors were forced open. The keys were simply gone. Then Andreas found a Munich newspaper in his kitchen, a paper that no one in the family had purchased and that the postman swore he hadn't delivered. Someone was walking through their home while they slept, someone who now had the keys to every room. The chilling reality of the Hinterkaifeck case is not just the murders themselves, it is the timeline. Based on the maid who fled in terror 6 months prior, investigators later theorized that the killer or killers didn't just arrive on the night of the slaughter. They had been living in the attic for months. They had hollowed out a small nest in the hay. They had pulled back the floorboards to watch the family eat, sleep, and argue. They shared the house with the Grubers, an invisible parasite waiting in the dark rafters, until the time was right.
It was Friday, March 31st, 1922. A new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived just hours ago to replace the one who fled. The farm fell silent. The family retired. But in the attached barn, the cows began to panic. At first, it was low moaning, then furious agitation. The sounds carried through the walls, through the connected hallway, into the farmhouse. Someone, something, was in the barn. The Grubers did not go together. One by one, drawn by the distressed cattle, they walked into the trap. It is believed the widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, was the first to enter the barn. Imagined her walking that narrow, freezing wooden hallway, a lone lantern casting her own monstrous shadow against the raw wood beams. She opens the door to the stable. She sees the figure stepping out from behind a hay bale. She recognizes the weapon. It is the farm's own pickaxe. She looks at the face of the watcher, and the light goes out. When Victoria didn't return, her mother, Cecilia, followed her into the dark. Then the patriarch, Andreas Gruber. The killer did not chase them. He didn't rush. He simply waited in the shadows as his victims arrived, single file, following the paths he had already cleared. The cold efficiency is what truly defies logic. The family was led to the slaughter by the very person they had been hosting in their attic for 6 months. Only 2 people remained in the main house, the little girl and the new maid.
The slaughter was complete. 6 bodies lay dead on the property. A normal killer would run. They would flee into the freezing Bavarian night to escape the gravity of what they had just done. But the entity at Hinterkaifeck did not run. Instead, they wiped the mattock clean. They walked back down the narrow, dark hallway, stepped over the threshold, and entered the warm farmhouse. They went into the kitchen, and they made themselves dinner. For 4 days, the killer lived as the man of the house. Neighbors passing by the isolated farm noted nothing unusual. Why? Because smoke was seen steadily rising from the chimney. The fireplace was kept warm. The killer slept in the family's beds. They ate the bread from the pantry. They even took the time to systematically feed the cattle in the barn, stepping over the stacked corpses of the Gruber family twice a day just to throw hay to the cows. Who could possess the psychological detachment to live alongside their own massacre? Was it Victoria's husband, Karl Gabriel? He was reported killed in the trenches of World War I, but his body was never found. Did he return, shattered by the war, to reclaim a family that had moved on? Or was it simply a drifter? A phantom who had nested in the attic for 6 months, who finally decided he was tired of living in the rafters and wanted the house for himself. By the time the townspeople finally investigated the silent farm on April 4th, the plates on the table were still greasy. But the ghost in the attic was gone.
The silence of Hinterkaifeck was finally broken on April 4th. Neighbors, alarmed that young Cecilia had missed school for days, approached the farm. They found the doors locked, the house eerily quiet, and the dog barking frantically in the barn. When the police arrived from Munich, they were met with a scene that defied all psychological profiling. They found the bodies, yes, but they also found the freshly cut bread, the warm ashes in the hearth, the neatly arranged hay where the killer had slept after the slaughter. The authorities realized with sickening clarity they had missed the phantom by mere hours. They tore Hinterkaifeck down. Just a year after the murders, the local townspeople dismantled the farmstead piece by piece. They burned the wood, they shattered the stone, they erected a single memorial cross in the empty field, hoping to erase the memory of the anomaly. Over 100 suspects were questioned: drifters, neighbors, former lovers. In 2007, the students of the Fürstensfeldbruck Police Academy reopened the case using modern forensic techniques. They identified a prime suspect, but kept the name completely classified out of respect for living relatives. The file was closed. The killer won. Hinterkaifeck is gone. But the archetype of the watcher in the walls is not. Today, we call it phrogging, strangers secretly living in the crawl spaces and attics of occupied homes. They wait until you leave for work to eat your food. They listen to your conversations through the vents. So tonight, when the house is totally silent and you hear that heavy settling creak in the floorboards above your bedroom, ask yourself, is it just the wind? Or is your attic already occupied? Welcome to Arcanum. If you survived this descent into the shadowed corners of reality, subscribe and leave a mark in the comments below. What mystery should we unearth next?